Good evening, viewers. I'm Abhinav, and it is with great pleasure that I would like to welcome you for the final talk of Architect Summit's Masterclass series, Talk with the Top. Architectural technology is a vibrant and upcoming topic. This year's theme for the summit aims to provide the stakeholders with a platform to express and explore the integration of technology in architecture and design, and also spread the ideas of innovation, sustainability, and advancement. We'll now be playing a short video about the Architect Summit.
As an architect, you have an amazing opportunity to change people's lives. More than 50% of the world now lives in cities. Buildings use up about 40% of the world's energy. So these machines are actually a huge part of global warming and damaging to the environment.
Once again, I would like to welcome everyone for this much awaited talk, and we have the renowned architect, Ms. Sheila Sri Prakash with us. Ms. Sheila Sri Prakash is an internationally acclaimed architect, urban designer, and sustainability expert with more than 1,000 projects to her name. She's the founder of Shilpa Architects and is the first woman in India to have started and operated her own architectural practice. She's been named in the top 10 most influential architects by Construction Global magazine and the top 100 architects in the world by Il Giornale Dell Architecture, a part of the 25-member Global Future Council on the Future of Environment and Natural Resource Security. She's also closely associated with the Chennai Smart City project as an independent director and urban expert. It's an absolute honor to have you for the talk, ma'am.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah,
Good evening. I think it's a great initiative. I must congratulate Abhinav and his team on this effort, and I think it is very appropriate and timely that they try to integrate the different branches of design and technology together, because I think we are facing a challenge today which is unprecedented, and we have not even thought about that it would, we would be in a lockdown situation like this. I will present to you a small fire starter, as I call it, because it's a fireside chat, where I think we will, are you able to see my screen?
Not till now.
So I thought this would kind of have the, where is the upload button?
So when it's on the bottom right, there's a present now button.
Okay. So I thought I'll start off with what architecture is and why it is so crucial to today, especially to reaffirm with ourselves about the need for being responsive and responsible. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So so here we go. So architecture, according to Le Corbusier, who is the doyen and father of architecture, if I may say so, is that architecture is the starting point for everyone who wants to take humanity towards a better future. And don't we all do that? So according to me, it is not the Mona Lisa painting, but it is the canvas that is the base of the painting, the beautiful artist's imagination. So unless there is a canvas, I don't think we would be in a position to create such a beautiful painting. And our lives are also like that. So we need a base, and that base is the built environment. So design is a very complex, process, and because it involves various locations, various end users, conflicting ideas, conflicting requirements, and then you have the mandates of the planet, concerns of the planet, the workforce, the soil conditions, the statutory norms, which are very specific to local areas, the microclimate of each area. You can't design the same for Singapore as you design for China, as you design for India. So design, you need to optimize all these parameters. All the stakeholders have to be included, and you have to address each one's concern and act equitably. And so this is a very complex web, and that is the process of architectural design. So architectural design could be right from the micro level. I always say that the planet is the cosmic, the macro macro space that has been given to us, to humanity. And here we are carving out smaller spaces to suit our needs and requirements. So that is what architects do. So it is a very responsible profession. You have to be responsive, you have to be sensitive to what is needed. It is not like an artist doing a painting. It's not, we don't have the liberties of saying, you look at it, you like it, you see it, otherwise you go. People have to live there, people have to perform, and people have to progress, most importantly. So that is architecture. So it could be a small house, it could be an institution, it could be a larger campus, it could be even a city. So and then of course from the city it is the state, from the state it is the nation, and it goes on. So the various scales of design is what differs, but the fundamental process and the fundamental approach of how you approach a design, being aware of the various stakeholders and addressing their needs, is what is important. So now I'm just taking you from the micro, a few examples to run through the scale of the projects. So you have small little houses where people live, a family of say husband, wife, and a child or two live, and it has to respond to their need and to their local customs and to their psychological and physical needs, and also to their thermal needs, their budgetary needs, etc. So this is a small house that we designed. It's one of my favorite houses, so I put it up here. It is in the Cholamandal Artists Village. And then this is another house where the sensitivity went on because, an old house was being pulled down, and everything within that old house had to be brought in to this new house. How do we do that, especially when the scale of all your, ornamentation that is available in the older house is so large and disproportionate? How do you bring it into scale with something that you are doing which is much smaller in size? So that was a challenge. And so we had to be sensitive enough to incorporate all that into this new house, which made the client very happy and proud. So this is part of that house. To the handrails, the chair, the light. To a small office building, how do we do it in a way that it gives you an envelope for us to work, a dust-free environment, and without mosquitoes. Being in Chennai, you have to take care of that, and your tabletop should not get dusty every day in the morning. So it has to be a closed environment, but at the same time a responsive environment which makes you feel that you are part of the outside. So you're a capsule, you're encapsulated in a capsule, but still you're connected with the outer world. So this was our office, which we did, and where we tried to bring in various methods of hybrid air conditioning and solar. And then we also brought in daylighting. We don't use lights at all during the day in our office, in all the studios, etc. So this was a challenge. This was a major challenge that we undertook. We started it off with, studying the sun angles, studying the local, area, and how the shadows fall, how the heat gain happens, what happens with the water, how it comes in, how it can be drained, etc. So all these parameters is what makes it complex. So when you have to address these various parameters, the more the parameters, the complexity of the design increases. So at even the micro scale, the sensitivity behind addressing the needs of a stakeholder is what is important. Here, this is a small little EWS hut which has been designed by us. It is an incremental house, so it suits the pocket of the owner, and he can value add. So he gets a home, a house, and then he makes it his home by adding things slowly as his pocket allows. So this is the little thing that we had made. And to integrated communities. And why integration? We of course need integration, because Indian economy depends on the informal sector. Is about 70% and depends on it for entire existence. So there is no shying away and closeting ourselves in gated communities, which are, only for the elite or only for a particular class of society. We need to be able to build with people, at the same time addressing the concerns of the various communities and social cadres, to see that everybody is comfortable and living in peace and harmony. So what is the philosophy of design? The philosophy of design is that it is iterative. There are so many iterations that happen before you get the right fit. It is transactional, because you have to, transact with each stakeholder. It is inclusive, because you include all the stakeholders. It's equitable, because you address everybody's concern. And ultimately, it is reciprocal. So I call my philosophy of design as being reciprocal. So now when you come to the cities at large, you have, this is the background of Chennai, you have cities are, drivers of economies, and then they consume about 70% of the global resources. They produce 40% of the greenhouse gases, so they are not very efficient. Managing urban growth is a global priority. It's a nightmare for any government. And then cities have to innovate to make their unique challenges. And that's why these smart cities have come into being in India and all over the world. And cities must be able to share their experiences to develop for the world to learn. So where we learn from others' best practices and adapt to our own local conditions. So there is no question of copying, and there's no question of saying that one answer suits all. What suits, say, Hong Kong may be totally irrelevant to Mumbai. But the same thing, you have to understand what Hong Kong did, what Singapore did, and how they did it, and how we could adapt those measures, or maybe not even use those measures and avoid those measures, to see that we get something which is responsive and which suits our local psyche. So now, what are the issues today? Today, we are facing a lot of issues, right from cities, the overcrowding of cities. There's absolutely, when you talk about, you're all engineers, you all know that a piece of land has what we call as the bearing capacity. But what is the bearing capacity of a city? There is no bearing capacity. It is, absolutely like the exodus is continuous. So how do you manage this? How do planners even plan for numbers? Planners have to have some numbers to plan, right? So what happens? There is a lot of crowd. There is a lot of commutation issues. There is a lot of commotion, chaos everywhere. There is so much of pollution. There is so much of dust going on. There's so much of scarcity of resources. There's not enough water. There's not enough power. And then to top it all with climate change, we have water, the risk of floods, the risk of typhoons, the risk of earthquakes, the risk of volcanoes. And then we also have this ever-rising dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots. So there is one sect of people who are living in absolute so-called luxury. I do not know whether we are right in saying luxury. It is some kind of a lifestyle, whereas the other has absolutely no facility or nothing to call their own comfort zone. So how do you bridge this? So this is a major issue that we need to look at as architects and as responsible people who are designing the built environment. So we have planetary boundaries. We have abused our planet. There is no biodiversity loss is happening so much every day. And then there is the climate crisis, and there's the nitrogen cycle. And these are devastating, issues. So where these boundaries are being crossed, and we know that this is going to result in catastrophe. And today we are facing this coronavirus. We are facing the locusts coming in. We are facing the floods. We are facing it all together. So. But on the other hand, you have technology. Technology is doing great guns. So much of innovation, so much of new technology. We have the Internet of Things. We have the connectivity. We have data. We have the data analytics that's possible. We have the capacity to understand and to facilitate the understanding and adaptation of the data. And then we also have the ability to connect. So with the IoT, you're able to connect. You have the 3D printing as well. So that is another major thing. You have driverless cars, you have sensors, what have you. So technology is making rapid strides. So how do you use these technologies to our advantage? So how do we marry the pluses of technology to make our lives better, happier, and more satisfying? So smart cities are not about expensive technologies, because we know that technologies become very obsolete. So the dangers on relying on proprietary technologies is not really possible, because sometimes, it becomes obsolete and upgrades are so expensive. So what do we do? So what is it that we adapt? What is it that we adopt? And what is it that we modulate to suit our requirements? So what are these issues? There is now when you talk about a smart city, everybody is talking about a smart city. But what is really smart? Is technology smart? What makes it smart? It is not that. Are there any parameters for you to check and say that, if you have all this, you are a smart city? You have to be ultimately smart. The governance and the people have to be smart to adapt the right technologies. So it is not that technology makes you smart. But we all understand that making our lives less stressful and with coordinated efforts of multiple stakeholders and technology, we would be able to get a lot of things which are safe and efficient for humanity. So it is a question of being able to collaborate. So this initiative of Shaastra, I think, is wonderful, because it looks at, when Abhinav came and asked me about Archi-Tech, I said, but IIT Madras does not have architecture. So then he said, no, it is not only for architects, but it is how technology can add add to architecture to, improve and to better things, the status. So I said it's wonderful because it's these kind of collaborations that can make things happen. And today there are no boundaries. There are no boundaries. Everything melds and merges one into the other. And therefore, we should be in a position to understand that expertise all over us should be imbibed and should be absorbed for us to, innovate and create better things for ourselves. So planning is absolutely complex. As you all know, city planners are always perplexed. There are, different pulls. If you say no to coal, then do you have the renewable energy that is available? How do those tariffs work? I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling. So now what is this then? It is about, creating this balance. Really, sustainability and holistic sustainability is about creating that subtle balance, which I love. The Tanjavur, I don't know if you know about this Tanjavur doll, but it's a Tanjavur doll is pivoted at the head and at the torso and at the leg. And if there is one tilt in or imbalance that is created in one area, the whole, the whole doll suffers and falls down. So it is this beautiful balance that needs to be maintained to see that we work in sync and in resonance with what is around us. So the reciprocal design index was a matrix that was created to ensure that we have benchmarking and milestones for various parameters that, we say that, okay, we can come so far in this parameter, but whereas in another parameter, we might do a little less, but next year, maybe you go up towards that in that other parameter which you have not addressed. So you have this kind of balance and you are sure that you are inclusive of all the parameters that are involved. So it offers a value system which is transparent and participative, and that is what is most important today. So now the RDI process, it involves socio, it involves economic, it involves ecology, it involves cultural challenges, cultural strengths, cultural pride, governance, and how governance and the people can work together. So embrace and learn from nature. I mean, the beehives from from biomimicry, when you look at architecture, and when you look at these small, homes and habitats of bees and ants, you wonder, and they work in so much peace and harmony, and all with a single goal, and that is to better and to create some kind of a balance in their lives. So that is something that we need to learn from. So this is ultimately, it's not something that is new to us. As Indians, we all know about yoga and how balance is so important. And therefore, I think it comes naturally to us. So now I think, Abhinav, you can take over and ask me the questions. I do not know whether I've taken enough more time or too much time, but you can start off with the questions that you had prepared and with the questions that people are wanting to ask.
Ma'am. So ma'am, that was a very inspiring and informative keynote. And starting with your journey, ma'am, you started your career as an architect at a time when there was a strong bias against women in the field. What motivated you to become an architect, and how far do you think architecture has come as a profession from when you started?
Oh my God, in 1979, the architecture profession was actually, we were all practicing architects. So all our jobs were tiny in scale. There used to be a home, maybe a kitchen modification, a clinic, or a factory which is about 3,000 square feet small, and each one was working in their own cocoon and trying to make the cocoon better. But then with time, the independent houses started becoming multiple dwelling units. I was aghast when flats came up. And I was wondering, and it was quite challenging to see and to think how, 6 or 12 owners can come together and live in harmony. at those times. But then that gave way to huge townships, where today we are talking about 3,000 families, which means around 15,000 people living together. So the scale has vastly changed. So the profession, which started as a practice, is now a larger firm of professionals where we work together, and the design complexities have also increased along with this. So this is something. And you were talking about the biases when I started. Yes, when I started, my professor at my interview asked me if I was depriving a boy of his career. So that, really, I was not prepared for that as an answer at my interview. So it was quite challenging, and I was aghast. And I realized that, these kinds of biases will come in life. And, but it only made me stronger. And I think, it made me kind of define my path, if I may say so, my path of what I wanted to really do, and how sensitive and all this research of mine into architecture, which is responsive, which is energy efficient, which is budget sensitive, all came up because I wanted to do something different, not run of the mill and flashy work with, marble from Turkey and chandeliers from Italy, and furniture from China. Okay, all that is design, but we can still have aesthetics which are very, very intrinsically Indian and which is very intrinsically ours, and still make it look very beautiful.
So, ma'am, talking about taking inspiration from India itself, you've been practicing Bharatanatyam since you were a child and were heavily involved in classical performing arts.
Yes.
So traditional architecture in India, mainly the temples, is very much inspired from the classical art forms in India. So, ma'am, how much do you think your early years as a performing artist has inspired your architectural projects in your career?
It has influenced me a great deal as a person, because I started learning Bharatanatyam when I was 4.5, and and my first stage performance was when I was 6. And you can imagine that I had my teachers and my parents would have really grilled me into some kind of a regiment to be able to perform on stage at that age. So, and one thing that really my gurus taught me, which school or cannot teach, is when you learn an art form in India, you have a very sacred relationship with your guru, which is a parent but a teacher. It's a beautiful mix, really. So I recall my dance guru first telling me that wherever your hand goes, your eyes must go, and wherever your eyes go, your mind must go. And as a 6-year-old, I did not understand what it meant. But then today, that is something which has taught me what focus means, and how you should put yourself out into what you're doing. So, I mean, these are philosophies that I have learned through my gurus, and I think that is invaluable. And as far as dance goes, we always imagine, we always create ambiances. So it's like designing in a way. So I think the transition to become a physical designer was very natural to me, because I was doing it in my dreams or as an expression form. And I also began to understand that space can really make you do what you do, and how you do it. So that is something that I learned from my Bharatanatyam. So where there is a bhava and then there is a vibhava. So the bhava of the of your building, or the expression or the emotion that your building emotes, makes you act in a particular way and react in a particular way.
Right. So, ma'am, the Global Design Studio of Shilpa Architect Planners Designers was awarded the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design Platinum rating for new construction by the Indian Green Building Council. Being one of the first platinum-rated design studios in India, it is a physical manifestation of your style of architecture, as you have mentioned in your keynote address. So, ma'am, how do you go about making this eco-friendly office space?
It is something that, as I said, the focus should be right from the beginning. You cannot retrofit a building design and say that, on hindsight, you're going to convert it into a green building, because that can only be cosmetic. So if you want it to be true and intrinsic, then you have to work right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, I mean, right from, studying the site, doing the orientation, how the building looks. You can't have preconceived notions about how the building should look, because all the elements and the grammar of design are results of your research on parameters like sunlight, heat, etc., water, etc. So they are all fallouts of your research, and if you follow that way, then your aesthetics also is dictated by it. So I find it very, very satisfying, and there's a very clear thought process in all the building designs that we do, and whether it is mandated or not, we start off with these fundamental studies of light and of sun and sun angles and trajectories, the wind, the all the soil, the bearing capacity of the soil, etc.
So, ma'am, in 1993, you designed a house in Chennai with recycled materials and pioneered a system for rainwater harvesting. This system was made compulsory in the state in 2003 and set a blueprint across India as the most effective solution for the crisis of freshwater resources in India. What was the system like, and how was it so cost efficient?
It was a very simple system. It was actually, at that time there was a shortage of rain in Chennai, and all the wells were going dry. So it was very common sense that you recharge the ground. The ground was being depleted of water, or whatever rain that fell went ran into the sea, or running over hard surfaces. So I made the paving, the garden areas percolate, and this was a house in a very, very large piece of property. So instead of concreting or paving it, because paver blocks were not available those days, I got these small stones and had a sand bed laid and put the stones on top of it, embedded it on top of it, so that all the water that falls into the site goes down into that particular soil. So it was rainwater harvesting of a kind. And, I also started doing some landscape detailing, where we had natural retention areas where water would percolate, and which I would push into the lower aquifers. So the wells of those particular sites, the water retention in it the next year was magical, really.
So, ma'am,
efforts, yeah.
Ma'am, you've also founded the Reciprocity Foundation, which aims to raise awareness, engage minds, build networks, and motivate actions towards creating sustainable cities. We've seen real progress in recent years when it comes to sustainability and conservation. However, it is still perceived to be an utopian idea amongst many. So, ma'am, how do you advise we approach sustainability?
I wonder why people talk about it as utopian. Huh? Utopian ideas are something people do believe even now, that it's all fantasy. You can't get everything, and it is too expensive. But
Right.
I think I think if you follow these systems methodically and approach methodically, I think it is very, very possible to achieve targets. Maybe not achieve 100% success, but then go towards it in baby steps. Say you get 30% efficiency, then move on to 70% efficiency. It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process, really. So you have to move forward. And the reciprocal design index for cities is precisely that. A city cannot be called smart on day one. it has to make steps. If the citizens' health is taken care of, then the flood, the risk of floods is not taken care of. The risk of circulation is not taken care of. So you have to do it one by one. So but then you must be aware that these are all required to make you smart.
Right.
So yeah.
So ma'am, being closely associated with the Chennai Smart City project as an independent director and urban expert, ma'am, do you think, what do you think truly makes a city smart?
There's no definition for smart, really.
Yeah.
I think the people have to be smart first. And technology cannot make you smart. And it is the common perception that by having CCTV cameras, or you're having an MRT, or you go towards smart. But that is only one minuscule aspect of being smart. So smart is being looking at it holistically, and people understanding that responsiveness and responsibility is what makes people really smart.
So ma'am, what do you think are some realistic goals that can be set for Indian smart cities in the next 5 years or so? And what role does new and futuristic technologies such as the Internet of Things play in the formation of smart cities?
Oh, I think technology can play a huge role in this, because one is as far as the data goes. So data is available. A few years ago, we didn't know we didn't know the status. But today, to obtain data about low-lying areas, flood areas, fragile areas, where waste is getting collected. So all the data is available. And collating it and analyzing it has become so much easier. So in fact, in the Chennai Smart City, we have a huge command center which has been set up. So where all this data comes in about crime, about traffic, about any fire in any area, any pandemic in any area, any waste, garbage issues in any area, any flooding in any area. So they all come into a common portal, where it could be addressed, analyzed, and action could be immediately taken. So that is really being smart. So I think I think technology can really make us smart. But we have to remember to use it as a tool, and it is not technology in itself, but how we use the tool that matters.
Yeah, ma'am, that's a very relevant take on the topic. And with the advancements in architecture and the modernization of society, how do we make our cities, buildings more socially exclusive for economically and socially backward classes?
Yes. See, actually, especially in our cities, it's not even the people who are living in the slums. Earlier, we were talking about slum dwellers, and trying to, make their homes better. But it is these migrant dwellers, as you have seen in this pandemic, who absolutely have zero facility to live in a city. So they come from somewhere, they work, and then they go back. They are usually farm-based people from other cities. So when the farming work is not there in their own villages, they come to cities, they do some labor, get additional money, and go back. So what is the kind of facility that is available for these people? There is no, they have no tenancy. The crime increases because these people can get away with things when they come, because practically they are not there in the city. They're not in the city records. They are not existent. So there needs a lot to be done about this, and we are a very labor-intensive and people-intensive country, and people are our resources. So understanding that our resources, along with capital, along with energy, along with water, etc., is manpower. So I think we should appreciate that. It's a major strength which many countries do not have. So how do we work on those strengths, and how do we make those strengths work to our benefit? Humanity.
Right.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, now we'll take some questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Ma'am, the increased frequency in shifts between floods and water scarcity in Chennai is attributed largely to the poor city planning. What steps can be taken to undo any mistakes that have already happened?
One thing that I am very convinced about is that, this process of centralization, and when a city becomes too large, like for example, now we have this greater Chennai. I mean, what is the necessity for Chennai becoming burgeoning into such a large, urban conglomerate? It's not required. I mean, if a city is manageable, small, efficient, and is able to take care of its people and keep the people happy, I think that is a more successful city than having a large print and having centralized plans and spending so much money to manage those systems. So I feel that this centralization as a solution to efficiency we have to move out, and we have to decentralize facilities, decentralized waste, decentralized power, sewage, water, etc., so that each community has its own identity and is able to work and feel for each other. Otherwise, even when it becomes too large, you don't know. So, for example, Chennai, if you're a Mailapurian, if you're a Triplicanian, or if you're an Adyar or Pursuvakam or the town area, these are all have their own very unique characteristics and cultures, if you look at it. So, one is in trade, one is in the arts, one is in education, one is an upper development area. So and then there are all religious centers around it. So these are focus points which we should work with, and it's not necessary that we should all become one amorphous kind of huge city where all these things are lost. Don't you think so?
Yeah. Right. So, ma'am, you also mentioned about biomimicry in your address.
Yes.
How has biomimicry and biophilic design of cities benefited us?
You look at nature, and what is so wonderful about nature is nature accepts that there is a complete cycle on everything. You take so you take about even waste recycling, for example.
Yes.
It has to go through a cycle. And the rain, water coming down, going down, coming up, evaporating. It's a closed system. It's a closed loop. So if you maintain these kinds of closed loops, I think, and you understand that is how it works with minimal waste and best usage of resources. I think that is a great learning that we can get from nature.
So, ma'am, a colleague of yours has asked this question in the chat. He said, could you compare the Chennai city planning with the planning that exists in today's technological era?
Well, Chennai is trying to do a lot of upgradation of the city. Whether that upgradation is really required as a real kind of benchmark to know whether the city is going up is something which is debatable.
So I'm coming towards the end of the talk. Pritzker Prize-winning Frank Gehry once called green building standards bogus. Like Mr. Frank Gehry, many famous architects dismiss sustainability outright. With such contradicting views, most of the young and aspiring architects don't even consider sustainable architecture today and leave it with a simple excuse of it being expensive. Ma'am, can you give a few lines of motivation for the next generation to take up responsibility and practice sustainable architecture?
Yeah, I think students should look at, come to have their own learnings about these things. Because, doing green for the sake of getting a certification is definitely bogus. I mean, why do you need a certification? And there are lots of people who do something for the sake of the certification. I have been trying to ask real estate developers to do, a lot of green practices right from the beginning, like right from maybe the mid 90s. But nobody was interested because they said, what is in it for us? Because we are going to sell, are we going to get a square foot rate which is higher? No. We have to spend a little more. Yes. So then why would we do it? So it was common sense to them that they do not adapt these practices. So, but then as an architect, you know that the life cycle is more long term. You're looking at the long term perspective and not the short term perspective. So when you look at the long term perspective, you understand that there are certain, things that would go into the building to make it sustain.
Right.
So where is the question of saying sustainability doesn't work? And I just can't understand architects who say that, but I'm sure they don't mean it in that way.
Right.
But they mean it in the superficial green, that kind of the green movement way. Planting trees is not green, right? Just planting trees is not green. Yeah. Somebody asked me, what is this green building? You paint your building green? So I said, no. I mean, this was, when the green movement came into being initially. Yeah.
So, ma'am, on this note, it was a pleasure to have heard your inputs on sustainability and the progress in architecture. We'd also like to thank our viewers for tuning in for this very insightful and inspirational fireside chat. Stay tuned for future Architect Summit events. Follow Shaastra IIT Madras on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and help us spread the word. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Abhinav. Congratulations to your team, and
Thank you.
I wish you many more such events. Thank you.
Thank you very much.